Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Neil. Today, folks, we're going to be talking about open ownership. I know we touched on this topic quite a few times in some of the amazing panels earlier, and particularly how this has an impact in terms of one of the most powerful technologies that we're facing today, which is artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence has been around for a long time, 80s, 90s, and so on. But today is when, in the modern times, is precisely when we're seeing its impact to real-world users, people like you and I, people like our mothers, and so on. So now let's explore open ownership. And I want to explore this in the context of DePIN. DePIN stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks. Now, infrastructure is broadly organized into various different layers, which we'll see in the talk today. Decentralized physical infrastructure networks are able to decentralize, essentially, the infrastructure layer, not just in the public realm, but also in the cyber realm. We'll see all of that today. I'll give a little bit of an introduction of myself. I'm Shruti. I didn't get a chance to meet all of you individually, but I'm chief economist at Huddle 01. We're building a decentralized real-time communication platform. Like Anil said, it's the decentralized Zoom. And formerly, I was head of product at Input Output, where I brought about programmability to Cardano, one of the top 10 blockchains in the world. And I started off my career at Consensus back in 2016, where I led product and strategy. What I really just enjoy doing is systems design. Systems design, at the end of the day, is about designing new protocols in order to build new socioeconomic operating systems in the world. So naturally, I feel very much at home in Web3 because it allows us to design these alternative protocols that enable equitable worlds. We saw today that a lot of artificial intelligence companies, they had this amazing intention to be open and democratized. Stability AI is one of them. OpenAI also started with that intention, to be honest. And they were able to do so by leveraging open data, open models, as well as open talent. They were able to unlock higher levels of the technology stack using all three of these open elements. However, we've also seen that a lot of these companies have had to go closed eventually, and that's because they were not able to access the open economy. Let's see what the technology stack looks like. The technology stack is this. At the base, we have the public. The public is everyone that forms the society. On top of that, we have basic infrastructure. Basic infrastructure has to do with everything starting from electricity, utilities, everything that's essentially necessary for conducting life sits in the basic infrastructure. On top of that, we have cyber infrastructure. Cyber infrastructure is anything that we need in order to run the internet. It's bandwidth, it's compute, it's storage, it's also hosting various other services that we require in order to host web applications, mobile applications, anything on the internet. And on top of that, we have applications. Applications now, they're not just mobile apps. I'm talking about the very generalized abstract concept of applications. This is essentially where we transform what is infrastructure to vertical specific use cases. These are applications. And in these top two layers, the applications and cyber infrastructure, we see that a lot of the businesses operating in these realms are closed and value extracting businesses. Whereas if you look at the basic infrastructure layer, often these are commodities, right? You're able to trade electricity in the open market, anyone can. Or these industries are typically highly regulated because these quantities and these commodities face inelastic demand. So there's really no room for private entities to be operating here. Few there are, such as the Japanese railway network, but generally speaking, basic infrastructure is highly regulated. It's either provided by a few monopolies in the government for good reason, because it's necessary for life, or it's tradable on the open market. It's essentially open. And on the top of all of these, we've got the users. And now the users are actually a constitute the public as well. So, even though I have represented this as a sort of a triangle, it eventually ends up being a circle because the users are the public. What we saw with artificial intelligence in the modern times, not in the 80s and 90s, but in the modern times when this was becoming privatized, is that artificial intelligence really had the intention of operating in the application layer, and all of artificial intelligence wanted to be democratized and also open, so that we're able to provide these models in a very democratized fashion and enable access to anyone who would like to develop on top of the technology. However, because our open and decentralized AI was being built in the application layer, and that application layer lies on top of a closed ecosystem, which is cyber infrastructure, it was not able to sustain. This kind of a business model had an explicit price dependency on the cyber infrastructure layer, which is closed. And because of that, a lot of these companies had to either completely switch up their business model so that they can vertically integrate and own all layers of the stack, or they had to go bust. So every AI startup, a lot of AI startup that had the intention of being open and decentralized, their two paths was either to do vertical integration with and own compute themselves by using bare metal servers, or just by running their own compute, or they had to go closed due to this strong dependency. From the physics of business models, this is what it looks like. We've got, the scenario which a lot of AI companies wanted to operate on was open layer on top of a closed layer. It forms an inverted triangle. It's just not, you can make an inverted triangle stand in that fashion. It is an equilibrium, but it's a very unstable equilibrium at that. And so you're not able to stand in that type of in that type of situation for very long. And every company that attempts to build on top of these closed ecosystems will always face a plateau in their growth. The growth is extremely limited because of the fact that it has price dependency as well as availability dependencies, as well as reliability and resilience as well on top of to the closed system that lies under it. Then we have the current model as well. The current model is where we've got open infrastructure and a closed business is being built on top of it. It's a stable model. It has worked. However, as we move forward, since AI is so powerful and it's so rapidly becoming integrated into all of our lives, we need a decentralized stack so that we can open up that top layer, the application layer as well. And so we need the entire stack to be open for enabling decentralized AI. Who here uses one of the LLMs such as Perplexity or ChatGPT in their jobs? Okay, a handful. Do you guys use it in your personal lives as well? I certainly do. When I can't be bothered to face the barrage of ads from Google, or if I don't want to be bothered with arguing with my partner, certainly it helps. It's gradually becoming more and more integrated into our lives. Certainly, decentralized AI is operating in the application layer now, but as civilization advances, successful life enhancements slowly start to experience this downward push to becoming basic infrastructure. So life enhancements become life necessities. And as civilization advances, in which I'm sure it rapidly will with the advent of artificial intelligence, this artificial intelligence is going to move to basic infrastructure. It's going to become a life necessity. And for that reason, it compels us to even more for this to be open and not privatized. The key, then, to going from open models, open data, and open talent, which are enabling higher levels of the stack and opening up higher levels of the stack, for us to be able to take that to the open economy is open ownership. And this is the decentralized stack, right? The key here, in order to enable the decentralized stack, is to enable openness of the cyber infrastructure layer, because that's the one that's closed, which is posing a limitation on all of these decentralized or intentionally decentralized applications that are being built on top of. Enter DePIN. DePIN stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks. DePIN can enable you to essentially own and operate your own nodes. So essentially, you own a share of the network that you're operating in. You can either be a user of that network or a supplier in that network, and you're able to earn if you're a supplier as well. Couple of examples here. One of them is the one that I work on, Huddle 01. We are decentralizing real-time communications. Real-time communications is basically things that we all face today in a remote environment. Everything starting from Zoom to Google Meet. Every single time we have one of these calls, we are speaking through an AWS server located somewhere else. And what we have found is that the costing of these types of businesses are extremely limited by the cost of AWS itself, and that tends to be quite high. So with these types of decentralized systems, especially with Huddle, we're able to have a 95% cost savings on the bandwidth that is required in order to run these types of calls. Now, you might be wondering how this all ties into ownership. The ownership comes in the form of owning nodes. These nodes essentially enable you to tangibly operate the node as well as supply bandwidth and essentially own the means of production when it comes to being a part of the network itself. The network coordinates all of the calls that happen between individual participants, and the nodes are the ones who supply the bandwidth that is required to conduct all of these calls. And of course, since they're providing a service, the nodes also earn rewards for it. Currently, we are selling early nodes, and that is an ongoing process, and we are also opening it up to the public very soon. The second one is Demeter. Demeter is really cool. I also advise this project, so disclaimer here. And they are decentralizing application hosting. Now, application hosting is super crucial in terms of any type of internet application that you want to have, whether it's an app hosted on the internet or any mobile app, you require hosting. It's a $108 billion market. Demeter is targeting this, and it replaces essentially all of the current hosting providers, such as centralized hosting providers, such as Versal, Firebase, Cloudflare, and so on, with a resilient decentralized network that is able to host several nodes across the world who can essentially host applications as well. Now, this is not just a decentralized system. Surely, like, we're questioning as to what is the benefit to the user or to the business of this decentralization. It's also resilience. It's also availability and the ease of access. If you have nodes closer to you rather than some US East server, you get much better latency in terms of all of these, performing any operation with that particular app, or even when it comes to interacting with your friends over a communication network. So much more geolocal nodes are able to provide more better availability and performance, as well as censorship resistance as well, because these are also permissionless. And at the same time, the users are able to retain the value within the system and the value that comes with ownership of their assets as well. I think that there is a significant portion of this group that is also familiar in Web3, so you can think of it as a decentralized alchemy or Ethereum name service as well. A few other examples that I'd like to shout out are Radical, Streamer, Filecoin, and Helium. Filecoin does decentralized storage. Helium has literally physical nodes which users can buy and tangibly operate. Let's have a little bit of a look back at history. We've had tokens as well. Where do tokens come into this picture? And one can argue that tokens gave users some form of ownership. I would say that tokens gave ownership in the sense that they gave people financial skin in the game. And this financial skin in the game also came with governance power in some ecosystems where people were able to essentially have their voice in terms of what kinds of policies and also drive decisions of the protocol itself. With nodes, you're able to have financial skin in the game, as well as governance power, and you're truly able to have a tangible ownership to the means of production, because you're literally going to be supplying the commodity that is being served on the network. So it's sort of like a pay-to-play business model, where buying nodes allows you to invest into the network and own a part of the network. And when you own a part of the network, you're also able to earn rewards from that network itself. The rewards are coming in from the users that are getting the value proposition of the network. This is the traditional model. We've got owners who do everything. They fund the building of the platform. They are the ones that supply the commodity. They also govern the platform, oftentimes in a very central fashion, unless it's a public company. And they also reap about 100 times of the value that they actually sell to their customers. And consumers have very little role to play in all of this. They just use. And they don't, even though they have the intention to be more integrated with the technologies that they use and have power in terms of how these technologies are designed, they don't get to have that. So we need to shift to another model which allows consumers and users to also have play a bigger role in terms of these networks. And we've certainly seen that in some of the ecosystems before, such as with open source as well. It happened way before Web3 even was a thing. With Web3, we're enabling marketplaces of prosumers. Prosumers are users who not just produce, but they also use. Crucially, they're able to produce. And that is what makes this model significantly different from the model that we had before. So they're able to enjoy the product as they please. So they use the product and the commodity that's being exchanged via this marketplace. They're also able to supply the commodity. So in the case of Huddle, you're able to own a node and supply bandwidth. And as you supply bandwidth, you're doing good for the users, right? So you're also able to earn rewards through it. Then you're also able to partake in all of the policy decisions that are being made in the platform as well. So you're able to govern the system. And I put this govern on the right side because this is something that you get. You're essentially getting governance power. Even though you're contributing your voice, you're essentially getting power in order to guide the future of the network. And finally, you're also able to make open source contributions, so you can directly build as well if you so please. Building, I would say, is sometimes an extension of governance because you're able to have a far more direct impact, but you're also able to build applications on top of the existing marketplace itself or the existing network. In the case of the DRTC network, it is just a network where the exchange of these commodities or the exchange of bandwidth happens. On top of that, you're able to have various different applications. Huddle01 is one such application. You can have various other applications, such as we have, I think someone from Farcaster is here, if I'm not wrong, but we have Farhouse as well, which if anyone remembers Clubhouse, Farhouse is a decentralized clubhouse built on the DRTC network. So you're able to partake in building as well, and these building modules are essentially completely composable and modularized, so essentially you're able to plug in various different components in order to build any app to your pleasing. And finally, all of these elements, the ability of an agent within the system, the prosumer, to own, to supply, and to earn, build, govern, and use the system enables them to truly and tangibly own a part of this network. And their ownership becomes multifaceted, and it's also enables them to have influence over the future of the network. Takeaways here: open ownership enables people-powered networks. Now these networks are not just going to be powered by single entities that control them, they're enabled by all of the users that are participating in the network, either as pure consumers or also as suppliers and governors. It also has democratized availability. So, for example, since your nodes are far more distributed, it's not just in certain geolocations, your nodes are far more distributed to various different hotspots, you're able to have much more flexibility and much quicker feedback loops as well when it comes to servicing demand. And finally, they're also accessible, and they offer very favorable cost structures. For example, with both Demeter and Huddle, we've seen significant cost reductions in terms of, especially with bandwidth, we've run calculations that show us that we've had 95% cost reduction for a decentralized real-time communications platform to operate on the DRTC network instead of using AWS. And finally, for the users and for the system itself, it offers greater security. It offers better resilience as well, because now you don't just have few nodes, you have much more nodes, so you have more redundancy, less downtime. And of course, now you also have much more agents that are participating in the network, so you have a much more competitive and a healthy, free environment for all of these nodes to be operating under. All right, folks, now I'd like to kick off the dinner and end our day by saying that humanity's strength is through coordination. It's through our ability to form complex social structures. It's also our way of building new civilizations. But the future of intelligence is collective. Thank you.